Minister Modi's historic maiden visit to the UAE, first ever by an Indian Prime Minister in 34 years. Those are visuals coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In fact, he is scheduled to hold talks with UAE leaders and address the Indian diaspora on day 2 of his UAE visit. Before leaving for Dubai, Modi in fact visited the Masdar city, shots and visuals of which we are showing you on your screens a little while earlier. It's a zero-carbon city that utilizes solar and other renewable sources of energy. So Prime Minister Modi there, who was visiting Masdar city a short while back and now speaking to different people and leaders at Masdar city. He will be travelling to Dubai and he will also be meeting the UAE Vice President and Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum a little while later. He will also be holding formal talks. Well, this visit does assume huge significance. Prime Minister Modi, who is in UAE for his 2-day visit, is also keen to foster a strategic partnership in security and energy. He is extremely keen to see UAE as India's foremost partner in trade and investment. And but the highlight really of day 2 is going to be that address of the Prime Minister to almost 50,000 Indians who are expected to congregate at the Dubai Cricket Stadium in a while from now. So live visuals they're coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who did visit Masdar city. Maha, just give us the latest, just take us through these visuals. We do believe that he did pay a visit at Masdar city, which is a zero carbon city that utilizes solar and other renewable sources of energy. And this is something that Prime Minister Modi has been extremely passionate about. He has always expressed a lot of interest in developed infrastructure, in new buildings. Even on his visit to Japan, he really marveled at the infrastructure there and has always been very keen to bring back that technology back to his country.
Yes, in fact, Avantika, that's been the aim of India to, be environmentally more responsible, and we have seen efforts being made in that direction. In fact, renewable energy and getting energy out of other sources has been an important issue for India, considering that the present dependence on traditional means of acquiring energy are something that is exhaustible like coal. So India definitely does want to move in that direction. Solar energy is something that hasn't really picked up that big in India. There are cities where we are seeing the urban population largely taking to this aspect, but considering that the value of some of these technologies is not very conducive to, say, a middle class or a lower middle class setup, this hasn't really picked up that big in India. Right. But that is exactly the aim of the Prime Minister, to look at how the UAE is utilizing that, and that's why he's visiting Masdar city, to see how technology is being utilized in that direction. Now, apart from that, Avantika, this entire visit assumes a greater significance because of the fact that he's visiting as an Indian Prime Minister who's going after 34 years to a place which has a lot of Indians, and the Indians there are looking forward to hearing from the Prime Minister when he speaks at the Dubai Cricket Stadium later in the day. We will be seeing him addressing the Indian diaspora, which is likely to turn out in large numbers, largely to hear as to what their contribution to the country can be, and that they do not feel distanced from the country, so to speak. That is something that when we spoke to a lot of journalists in the UAE who are keenly observing this visit, that is what they said, that the Indians there were keenly looking forward to. So far the stress has been more on the Indians, the expats, the NRIs who are based in the West, to look at them as to how they can contribute to the country, and very little really has been, very little significance really, if I can say it that way, has been given to a place where there are so many Indians, where the remittances are really high. Yes. As far as the Indian community is concerned. So that is something that they want to look at, and there are certain problems that the labor community faces of Indian origin, of Indians rather, not Indian origin, who also want their issues to be addressed when the Prime Minister speaks.
Now, the main aim, Maha, is clear. It is, of course, to boost bilateral relations between India and, UAE. But speaking of that address of the Prime Minister speaking to the largest Indian expatriate community. What is expected in that address? Is he expected to, announce something for Indians residing in the Gulf? Is he expected to, take up the welfare of Indians? Because that has often been highlighted about Indians who have been, most of the Indians who have been living in Dubai, working in very, poor and deplorable conditions.
Well, yes, that is something that the Prime Minister has tried to take a first-hand look at. Remember, he has already been to a camp which houses a lot of Indians in Abu Dhabi. He has, interacted with them yesterday itself. And the idea was to get a sense of the problems that they face, and therefore later the issues can be taken up at official level and be sorted out. Now, presently, the aim is actually cooperation with the UAE as far as energy security is concerned, as far as terrorism is concerned. Remember, the ISIS threat is pretty much real, even for a country like India, because now it has had run-ins where people have been abducted by ISIS who are working in West Asia. In fact, we have seen that there are about 39 Indians who are still in the custody of ISIS in Mosul in Iraq, and that is one of the points that that is likely to be discussed in the Prime Minister's meetings at various levels. That is one important aspect, apart from the fact that as India Today last evening broke the news about how the NSA has also prepared a dossier with regards to the properties of underworld Don Dawood Ibrahim, and expecting some cooperation as far as the UAE is concerned in seizing those properties. Now, those are important aspects, but yes, of course, the very fact that there is such a huge population of Indians in the UAE working there is something that the Prime Minister, of course, wants to address and take up, and that's why we are seeing him address the diaspora on the lines of what we have seen in the past, him addressing the diaspora in the US as well. So
Absolutely.
Yes, he will, of course, be looking at the schemes that are already, the campaigns that have already been launched by the NDA, talking about those as well, taking that message across to the Indians there, apart from addressing their issues as well.
And he's been given a rousing welcome. I mean, we're seeing everywhere excited crowds cheering for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That would also be creating such a buzz in Dubai, isn't it, Maha? I was also reading about, the organizers making such elaborate arrangements to ensure that, his speech at Dubai's cricket stadium goes off smoothly and there is absolutely no untoward incident. In fact, and this being a working day, one is expected that a huge number of Indians would be arriving there to hear their Prime Minister speak to them, and that was the first time in 34 years.
Well, one thing that the Prime Minister and his team do very effectively, and we have seen that happen repeatedly, is able to organize an event and project a larger-than-life image for the Prime Minister. We have seen that in the past. We have seen that happen in the US, in Australia, and the organizers are pretty much now very adept at organizing an event of the scale that we are likely to see in Dubai, which has a capacity of about 40,000 people, and they are expecting a large number of Indians to turn up for that event to hear the Prime Minister. Yes, of course, this visit is very significant. It's coming after 34 years that any Indian Prime Minister is visiting the United Arab Emirates after 1981 when Indira Gandhi had visited. So clearly, that is the reason that we have seen the red carpet being rolled out for the Prime Minister, with the Crown Prince himself, receiving the Prime Minister at the airport, breaking protocol. They also understand the significance of this visit, like India's, laying stress on this visit. This also is a balancing act, Avantika, if I can tell you, because there are visits that have already been announced for the Prime Minister to Israel, and this is also a balancing act.
Okay, all right. Maha, consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai also joins us. Good morning, Rajdeep. A very significant visit there by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's the first ever by Prime Minister in 34 years. He's already creating a lot of buzz, cheering crowds, people taking his photographs. Clearly, apart from boosting bilateral relations between the UAE and government, the Prime Minister, there's a palpable excitement about his speech that he's expected to make later on.
Absolutely. I think after his visit to the United States in September last year, this in many ways is his most significant visit, simply because A, it is the first visit, as you said, in 34 years. be the fact that there is a large Indian community who are not NRIs necessarily, but who are people who actually are either migrant workers, who keep coming back to this country, who have strong links. Number three, the fact is also this is his first visit to a Muslim country. And I think it's significant, as Maha was pointing out, that ahead of his visit to Israel later this year, it was important that the Prime Minister reach out to the Arab world. So in that sense, I believe for all these three reasons, this is a far more significant visit than most of the other recent visits that the Prime Minister has done. And I think the kind of reception that he has got is suggestive of the need, the hankering among the Indians living in the Gulf for greater connect with their home country. These are people who keep coming back to this country. These are people who are connected through the remittance economy. Particularly states like Kerala have large Indian populations who reside in the Gulf. So I think it's an extremely significant visit, and the manner in which it has been conducted does suggest that the Prime Minister is making a real reach out to the people.
Absolutely. Rajdeep, you know, I remember watching that fascinating speech he made at Madison Square Ground in the US, but the profile of expatriates, the Indian community is very different from what we see in the US and that what we're going to be expecting in Dubai. Do you think his speech will be on expected lines? Is he expected to share his vision of governance and talk about the politics in his country, or is he expected to address the issue of welfare of the Indian community in the Gulf?
The Indian community, Avantika, in the Gulf really represents various themes. There are those who have really been very successful and made it really big there. There are middle-class professionals, and then there are migrant workers. And I hope that the Prime Minister addresses all three constituencies, because there has been a concern among migrant workers that their condition is often ignored in the focus on the rich and the middle-class professionals. So it would be useful if the Prime Minister can address their concerns as well. And I think because they are so close to the country, they are also intimately connected with the politics of India. So you can expect him to address that. And remember, the Indians who reside in the Gulf cut across communities, they cut across, as I said, income groups. So I think he will have to make a very different pitch to the one that he makes when he addresses NRIs in the Western world.
Rajdeep, the Prime Minister's visit primarily is to seek to enhance cooperation in energy and trade and really reach out to investors. But he's not even ignoring terror here. We at India Today since morning have been talking about that dossier that has been prepared to submit to the UAE government. How optimistic India is that some action would be taken to seize the properties of the underworld Dawn, because they've not really acted so far in these many years?
Absolutely, and I don't think you can expect any immediate action there. I think, look, dossiers can be submitted, but let's be honest that the likes of Dawood Ibrahim have had very strong links with this part of the world. And the fact is that to expect the government of the UAE to act against Dawood overnight based on a dossier is, I think, expecting a little bit too much.
Then
but
what is the purpose of carrying the dossier at a time of his visit?
Well, I think it's important to have that dossier there. It suggests a sense of seriousness on part of the government. But dossiers have been submitted in the past as well.
True. And
the fact is that governments in that region have not acted against the likes of Dawood Ibrahim. There is still question marks about Dawood's identity and where really is Dawood. Is he based in Karachi? Does he move across the Gulf? Does he move in Africa?
Right.
So I think while that will be part of his talks to try and sort of strengthen India's resolve to, in a sense, bring back Dawood, which this government claims is part of its agenda, I don't think we can expect any miracles there. I think this visit is more important in terms of the strong message that it has sent out. Symbolic message, even if it may be, that this Prime Minister is no longer just focusing on the Western world, which is often accused. He's also trying to reach out to the Arab world. And I think it was important that the Prime Minister made this, particularly before he went to Israel, because there is a lot of misgivings within the Arab world that Narendra Modi government has shifted its foreign policy shift towards a more overtly pro-Israel stand, sending out the message that India wants stronger relations with the UAE is significant in that regard.